Hey everybody, welcome to BrickVault. My name's Jack. Today we're taking a look at Rick's Spaceship from Rick and Morty. I've made this MOC quite a while ago. There's a lot of people that have done this particular MOC in LEGO, and this is just my own personal interpretation of the ship. I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. I might be doing some redesigns later, but anyways, let's take it into the light studio for you guys to get a better look.
Now, as a technicality, I didn't just build this version of Rick's Spaceship, I also built a micro version as well. Technically, that was actually the first version of the ship I built, but I don't know, maybe I'll show that off a little bit closer later. Let's focus on the big version right now. Now, I'm gonna say right off the bat that this build is not the easiest thing to put together. The current set of angles that I have for all of these sloped pieces kind of coming in on top of each other is just a little bit too tight. LEGO Digital Designer, for example, won't support the connections that I've used, and it requires sort of a high level of dexterity and sort of balance when putting the final pieces on, because you do sometimes run the risk of accidentally popping some of the parts off. I did this during a live stream, not really rebuilding the entire version of the ship, but just kind of showing how each of the tile pieces attaches to the main ring. And if you were part of that live stream, you could see that a lot of parts were popping off during the build process, and once they're all on at the very end, the build itself is actually quite stable. Now, when it comes to looking at the actual proportions of the ship, I wasn't really going for any kind of accuracy. I really just wanted to have a version of Rick's ship on my own. So when you look at it compared to the actual artwork, you'll notice that the body of the ship arcs down at a much sharper angle than what we see from the cartoon, and it's a bit wider in general. I have some ideas in my head on how maybe I want to do a redesign to make things a little bit more proportional, but for the most part, I'm pretty glad on how things turned out. So just to give you guys a closer look on some of the details, I used the parts that make up the lights in the front. In the cartoon are just some duct taped flashlights, and I think I found the parts that match that shape the best, though their connection point right now is them sort of just hooked onto some tap pieces. They stick out a little awkwardly, but I do like the actual color and shape of the flashlight lights themselves. Now, of course, I could have used actual trash can pieces for the trash can thrusters on the ship, but due to the size of this MOC, I felt like the LEGO trash can piece itself was just a little bit too small for the size of the MOC I was putting together. Once again, I wasn't focusing on anything that was exactly minifig scale, and though these things are pretty big next to an actual LEGO minifig, I think the tread pieces that I used that end up making the shape of the trash can match better with the size of the ship. Realistically, the round stud pieces that I used for the sort of arms that hold on to them are a little bit too thin. I played around with using some of those wider flexi tube pieces, which might have looked better, but a lot of this build ended up becoming just me playing around with techniques that I personally had never attempted before. So it was fun to try to like figure out how to make sort of a trash can shape out of the 5 different tractor pieces, and they're by far the most overly complex part of this build that are maybe a little bit too delicate. Now you can see the general layout of the panel detailing well enough. Not all of it is perfectly even, but I do want to point out or just zoom in on this one section. This is the bumper stickers that Rick has on the ship. I don't have any custom printed pieces like some MOCs might have, so I just sort of improvised using a handful of smaller tile pieces to make up the 3 different bumper stickers that he's got on the side. The round tile on the left is actually only being held in by the blue rectangular tile on the top, so that sometimes pops out if you're handling the MOC a little bit too roughly, and realistically a print or sticker for this would be a much better choice for the future. When it comes to the cockpit, you'll see the windscreen piece doesn't actually attach to any sort of solid rim that makes this thing feel like it's airtight, but it does come to a full close, and the interior I think is okay with just a little bit of details that you can kind of see around. Rick has got himself a little bottle of alcohol next to the driver's seat, as the character usually does, and there's a few sort of mechanical sort of gizmos that you can see on the inside, though none of it is really trying to be super accurate as to what the show actually has for the interior shots of the ship. The back has some detailing there, but no neutrino bomb, and if I do end up getting more minifig characters from the show, there is definitely space to fit a 3rd or maybe 4th minifigure behind the seats. Now, looking at the minifigs themselves, these are custom printed minifigures of Rick and Morty. Can't remember where I bought them, but I'm pretty happy with the way they turned out. The cool thing about custom printed figs is that you can get printing onto the back of the legs, which is kind of nice, but the closer you look at these minifigs, you can see the print quality is not quite up to snuff as to what maybe a regular Lego minifig print would be. That's sort of expected, but these guys are actually pretty expensive, the pair of them. These are the first custom minifigures I've ever bought, and generally I'm pretty happy with the way they both look. As you'll note, I did not go with what the original Rick's spaceship looks like from the first episode. I know a lot of people, a lot of mock builders like to add the flag on the back, or the sail on the back, I should say. Personally, I just opted to go with the ship that's in all the other episodes, but I suppose it wouldn't be too hard to add a sail onto the back of the ship if I really wanted to in the future. Now let's take a look at the micro build. I guess that's the last thing to look at. This is what I put together before I really wanted to bite the bullet on working on my own Rick's spaceship mock. Here you can see that the windscreen is blue. That's partially due to the fact that I just don't have a clear piece in this color, and this was just sort of a fun little extra thing. But also, I guess from the first episode, Rick's windscreen was tinted blue, which it basically isn't in any of the other episodes. You can see Rick and Morty built on the inside, which I think was the only thing that I really like about this mock. And all of the sticker detailing you see on the outside is technically made from real Lego stickers that I just cut out of the side sort of extra bits with an X-Acto knife. That's the first time I've ever done anything like that for a Lego mock before. This was just sort of for fun. And when you see them together, I almost like to imagine that the micro version of the build could just be an alternate reality version of Rick and Morty when they're both super tiny. Infinite universes means that's totally possible and absolutely probable. Anyways, that's the mock in its current form right now. I already have a pretty clear idea on how I want to sort of rework the shape of the ship without hopefully taking too much of it apart. And who knows, maybe in the future I'm going to be doing a Rick's Spaceship 2.0 episode where I've done a bit more of a redesign. I feel a little bit more confident with the shape of the ship, and if that is the case, then I might even have an LDD file for the build as well.
All right, that is it for this episode, everybody. Thanks a lot for watching. Remember, if you enjoy our content, you can always like or subscribe, and we'll see you next time at BrickVault.